Good morning. I want to thank the grace of heaven, virtue of masters, mercy of transmitters, and confidence placed by all of you for the opportunity to learn to talk about Confucius. Last Saturday, the 6th of October, was his birth anniversary, but because last Sunday happened to be also the birth anniversary of Zhonghua Shengmu, and we kind of postponed the topic, paying the tribute to Confucius this week.
Oh wait, Zhonghua Shengmu wasn't a Sunday?
Was last Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And the 7th.
Right.
Yeah, but it was the lunar calendar, and it was the 7th on the Western calendar. Okay. Well, before I talk about, here are some of the attributes. There was some of the, compliments or testimony to Confucius. Ralph Emerson, he's the American philosopher, and he said Confucius should be regarded as a glory for all nations in the world. We know how he had not only impacted the Asian societies, but also his influence really spread across the globe. And Dr. Hans Alfred, a Sweden physicist, said, if mankind is to survive, it must go back 25 centuries in time to tap the wisdom of Confucius. As you can see in this newspaper clipping from the Canberra Times back in 1988, there was an article, a news about the Nobel Peace Prize winner. Nobel Prize winner. They have gathered to talk about the problem facing human society in the future, and it says that this was one of the conclusions reached at the first international conference of Nobel Prize winner after deliberating over 4 days in Paris last week on the theme facing the 21st century. And so they concluded that, just like Dr. Hans said, if we human being is to tackle the problems that are facing them in the future, they have to really find answer in the wisdom of Confucius. And Sima Qian, we know he is the author. He's a historian, and he's also the author of Shi Ji, which is the chronicle of the history. He said, if human heaven had not delivered Zhongni is like his what's his style name?
Style?
No, given name is Chu.
Oh,
okay,
so
I think style name. If had not delivered Zhongni to this world, it would have been dark nights throughout ages, throughout centuries. Okay, so he's known, in history, and he's not only known here. His influence and his fame is really, global. Okay, now about his biography, his given name, he was born Chu. Okay,
last name, right? Chu.
Given name is Kong is the clan name,
Yeah,
the name of the
clan,
clan.
right.
Yeah, but nowadays the Westerners know him to be Confucius because of. In Chinese, we call him Confucius, which means the master Kong. Fuzi usually is used to address with respect to someone who's very well learned, someone who's virtuous, someone who is a teacher. And so Confucius is like the Latinized version of Confucius. Latinized.
Is that where Confucius comes from?
Yeah.
The English? Oh.
Confucius. Latinization of. Yeah. And then his given name is Chu because he had quite an unusual birth, because there was some also story related to his conception. And his father was very ugly, but his mother was very young. His father had 2 wives before his mother, but neither of them bore him any boy. And in China, it's very important to have a son to inherit the name.
I thought the second wife has a son, but
He was
crippled.
disabled.
That's his
Yeah.
older brother, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Stepbrother.
Oh, step.
half brother.
Thank you for the correction.
Half-brother.
Yeah. So when he was born, he was also very ugly. They say his skull has a hollow, like and his ears and it's all like a stretch out. And it's shaped like a hillock, right? A hillock. It's like a little hill. That's the word. I don't know how to spell it.
What is like a hill?
It's just like his face shaped like a chew, and so he was given the name of Chew. He was born on September 28th, 551 BC, and lunar calendar is August 27th, 551 BC, and he was born in the county of Zhou, which is today's Qifu in Shandong province. Did I get the right one? Okay. His father was Kong He. He's also, I think he's one of the like official in military department at that time. And his mother is Yan Zai. And we had Confucius wisdom. Partly this should be accredited to the mother and his father-in-law. And we know later that Confucius' father passed away when he was only 3, and at that time, there was the social circumstances was really bad, was chaotic, and so the mother had to really raise Confucius with his very meager income, and so they moved back because Confucius' stepmothers refused to take them, so they kind of moved back to his mother's home, and so his grandfather or his maternal grandfather kind of educated him and give him a lot of influence, for example, in terms of family value and also all the rituals and proprieties. And so when he was born, there was so much wars and conflicts, and this was the period of spring and autumn in China's history, and that kind of coincided with the it was Eastern Zhou dynasty. Yeah, the end of the Zhou dynasty. We know the Zhou dynasty was about more than 800 years long, but towards the end of the dynasty, things became worse. The king had less and less authority over the local kingdoms, and we know the duke, right? Duke are like the ruler of each individual kingdom. So they have more power, and so the central power became weakened, and so every kingdom, local kingdom, fought for their own resources, and they want to try to compete for supremacy. So it was really a chaotic time. It was a war-torn land when Confucius was born, and he saw that even humanity was degenerating. In Chinese, it says 礼崩乐坏, because people did not, observe all the principles of social morals. They don't, practice, respect for the elder, and they don't really worship or revere their ancestors. And when it comes to music, Confucius placed great emphasis on music in its ability to transform people, to purify people's heart, to elevate people's spirit. And so he felt that there was such a serious problem with this society, and he felt that he had the mission. He had the responsibility to really help correct this problem, to also make the rulers aware of the situation. Because remember, he was born with a mission. He's not just any ordinary person. I think according to our senior transmitter Jin, he read so many, right? And he said that he has the same Buddha nature as the Zhou Wenwang, the Duke of Wen, who was a very, very virtuous king. And so he felt that he has the responsibility to really expound the correct moral value and standards. And so he has this vision for this world, okay? And this is known as the 礼运大同篇, 礼运大同. This is taken from an excerpt from the Book of Rights, okay? So that's his ideal of a perfect world. When the perfect way prevails, the world is a home shared by all. Virtuous and worthy men are elected to public office, and capable men hold posts in society. Peace and trust among all men are the maxim of living. All men love and respect their parents and children, as well as parents and children of others. This is the world of great harmony. So this is something that he envisioned, and he really spent so much time preparing himself and helping other, advocating his idea of the world harmony. But remember, he had a very sort of a miserable childhood and early life, so he had to help support the family. I think he also had siblings, and so he had to help support the family. He had held many different positions. Some are like, he worked as like a laborer. He also worked as a grain, what you call the grain storage keeper. He also worked as like bookkeeper. But because of his knowledge and his capability, he was able to rise to the position of the Minister of Crime. And so when he was the Minister of Crime, he was able to really implement his ideas in the policy. And so there was a time that the society was in, or his country of Lu, which is Shandong province now. So there was so much peace and social order. Crime rate really declined, and so his fame really spread. Okay, but then I think it was under the Duke of Ding, which is one of the ruler of the Lu, the country of Lu, that he was given such opportunity. He was given such position to perform. But then afterwards, there was another ruler of the Lu nation who became corrupt, because the other neighboring countries saw that Lu Guo is really prospering and becoming more and more powerful. So they want to really suppress this country, and they use some tricks to weaken this country. Like they send the ruler, I don't know what's his Ding Gong or is Xiang Gong. He gave him horses, many very very good horses, and also beautiful dancing ladies. Yeah, right. And so this new ruler did not. Confucius didn't say anything about it at first because he didn't want to disgrace the ruler. So there was a time, I guess, when he had some mistakes, okay, and that's when he stepped in and talked with this ruler about how he should really moderate his behavior, how he should mend his way. But this ruler did not take his opinion, and so this is time when Confucius felt that he's not needed in this country, and his vision cannot be put into practice. in this country. So since 496 BC, he went into a self-imposed exile. So he traveled through countries trying to we call lobby his idea of govern with benevolence or govern with compassion, and also try to advocate his idea of the world of great harmony. Okay, so nowadays we know him to be such a brilliant person, and his fame really continue. 25,000 years. But really, when we look at his life, it's not a very we say glorious or gorgeous life. It's really a very painful journey, filled with tears and lamentations. Yeah, but one thing that really single out him as a sage is that even in face of great or extreme difficulty and hardship or obstacles, he never gave in. He still believed firmly in what he's believing in. Okay, and we have to thank him for his perseverance and for his determination, so that we have this Confucianism and all his philosophy that really guides the coming generations. And finally, I think at the help of one of his students who rose to power in the Lu country, he was able to go back to his country, because his student, his disciple called Ran You, persuaded the ruler at the time to invite him to go back to his country. And Confucius died in 479 BC. So that's his life in a snapshot. So what's remarkable and what's the most contribution that Confucius made to this world are some of these, ideologies and concepts. Okay, the first one is heaven's mandate. Okay, he believed that we as a human being embody the Buddha nature, and actually the heaven's intent is contained in our human nature, in this nature. And so we have a mission in this life to help, to be the spokesperson of heaven and earth, to help propagate the truth and the principles. And he also believed in the oneness. Okay, so these are some of the core concepts. The third one is the 5 cardinal relationship, and then the 5 constants and 8 virtues, the golden rule. And he also believed in the exemplary roles of a ruler or a superior person, or a person in a leading position. In Chinese, we say the shang wei. And he also talks about the middle path. Okay, heaven's mandate. Remember, in the doctrine of the mean, it begins like what heaven confers is it's called the nature. Following the nature is the way, and cultivating the way is called education or teaching. Okay, he also said that the way of great learning is to manifest our bright virtue, to inspire others to also make a fresh start, and together arrive in a state of perfection. So the state of perfection means that we reincarnate into this world. We have this mission, and to perfect ourselves and to also help others perfect, and so we can all finally fulfill our vision, our mission, and our vows, and we can go back to where we came from. Okay, the oneness is that he trumpeted that heaven and we are one, and people are one. And he also emphasizes that we don't just know the principles, we understand the principles. It's more important that we apply this, we practice these principles. Okay, so heart and speech are one, cultivation and outside conducts are also one. I think I'm going to skip because these are quite familiar to all of us. And he's also very, very emphatic about sincerity. In fact, the central theme of the doctrine of the me is about sincerity, and Transmitter Jane and all of our lectures are also talking about sincerity, because like Confucius said in a book of this is the doctrine of me. And the second one, it says sincerity underlies everything from beginning to end. Without sincerity, there exists nothing. Therefore, a man of fine cultivation value sincerity most. Okay, so this sincerity is not only just being loyal or being faithful to our friends, to what we are doing. It's more important. More importantly, it's being faithful to our Buddha nature, and by that it means that we just have this Buddha nature, and whatever we do, we think, we say, have to manifest that Buddha nature. That's the true sincerity. Of course, there's so much more to talk about this. And he also said, when one is perfectly sincere, he foresees things to happen. Therefore, the extremely sincere person can be compared to supernatural beings. This is the Chinese idea of 至诚如神. When we are sincere, we don't have anything to cover up our Buddha nature. There's no hindrance, and this will give us, that potential. This will give us that the power to foresee things, to do things correctly and smoothly. And he also talked about the golden rule, okay? And once Zhigong, one of his disciples, asked, is there any one word that would guide a person throughout his life? And so the master replied, how about reciprocity? Okay, and so this is also known as the golden rule, or sometimes they call it the silver rule. Do unto others not what you want others to do unto you. Okay, and he also stresses the role models of rulers and a superior person. He said when a person, like when the king of a country, he performs benevolence, and it's very natural. It's very very probable and likely that his subject would also follow suit. However, vice versa, if the ruler of a country is vicious, then it's very hard for his subjects to be, kind and compassionate. So he's very, very emphatic about how person on a higher position should be a role model for others, and this is something we all should do. Sometimes we may not be in a higher position or in a leading position, but it's also important that we be the role model for other people, because there's so many eyes are watching us, right? Just like holy teachers said, when we teach people, we don't have to necessarily stand behind the podium and talk, to a crowd and audience. Every day in our behavior, what we say, how we say it, our body language, everything we do is teaching. And he also said, for a person, a superior person should be a very well-rounded person, has all abilities, enable him to serve other people. So he said a superior person should master the 6 arts, right? Do you know 6 arts?
Music.
I think music, art, archery, horse riding. Yeah, literature,
Chariot.
calligraphy, yes. Chariot,
That's what they call
horse riding. Yeah, right.
That's it? Is that 6?
No, there was music, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
music.
think so.
Yeah,
Archery.
yeah. Yeah, actually.
Mathematics.
No,
Oh yes, mathematics.
Yeah.
Because I just read it.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have all the 6, and then the middle path. Okay, we talk about this very often in our class. So overdoing is as bad as underdoing. Okay. Now, briefly talk about his contribution to human culture and civilization. He revived the great moral teaching of the sages of the past. So when he was born, he was faced with such turmoil. He was very nostalgic
Right.
of the past times. Like the gold. You can say that like the gilded age of the Zhou dynasty, when the kings were very virtuous, and also all the subjects were also doing their parts, and so everything was in Chinese say it's 风调雨顺. The wind blows at the right time and the rain drops at the right time, and so there's good harvest, and people are just very well behaved, but that it was no more in his time, and so he took it upon him to revive all this great tradition and value. Okay, and he also laid the foundation and developed the influential philosophy of Confucianism. Okay, so he's accredited with this philosophy. He's also traditionally credited with having authored or edited the 5 classics. Okay, so not only through books that he really had lived on, it's also through his disciples, that we are so fortunate to be able to get that inspiration and that wisdom through him, because of his disciple. They also, like the Analects is a collection done by his disciples, recording what his teaching, their dialogues and in their intellectual discourses, right? And also through the great learning, the doctrine of the Min, and later on the Mencius, which is the disciple of his grandson. And he also positively influenced the education system of the country. Okay, for Confucius, he feels that education really holds the key of the future for an individual, a society, and indeed, the world at large. There's no better way to transform a world than education. And so he feels like education is not something we do up to a certain point in time. Should be a lifelong journey. It should be something that it's like we should pursue as long as we still have that breath. He also started the first private school for the rich and poor alike. When he was 30, he started the first, like we say, 私塾, like a school, but he was taking in students of all classes. Before this time, only people who were like in the imperial court, or people who are from the noble background had the opportunity or the access to education. So it was very biased education system. So he was the one who really initiated the idea of no one left behind. And this idea was also followed by Laura Bush when she was also
First lady.
yeah. She said no child left behind for the public education. So he also talked about learning. He said at 15 my heart was set on learning. At 30 I stood firm. At 40 I had no more doubts. At 50 I knew the mandate of heaven. At 60 I was pleased with whatever I heard. At 70 I could follow my heart's desire without transgressing the norm. Okay. Now he also about his role in reforming the education system of the country. What is that? He also he was the one who developed that idea that there's no one's education methodology that's going to fit all the students. He taught his disciples based on their background. Like sometimes when his student asked ask him about what is ren, what is benevolence, or what is filial piety, then he would answer according to what they are lacking or what they are not doing well. And so he will always give various answers. So he really, his teaching method vary from disciple to disciple. And so he also propagated the concept of meritocracy, right? Meritocracy. Yeah, so it's not, the selection to the government position, to the public office position, it's not based on the rank or, the family background, rather on, merits, whether you have that quality. He said if a person from a noble background has no quality, then he should be lower to, just the ordinary, the commoners. However, if a person who comes from a very humble background but has very good quality, good virtues, then that person should be put into the position of, government. And so he also introduced the imperial examination system that is still used 2 millennia later. I think they say India and Britain also copy his, this imperial selection process. He also, and finally, he also put great emphasis on social harmony, because he felt that's the foundation. Harmony is the foundation for a society to thrive on, to succeed.
You're going backwards.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I guess I'm sorry. I'm not so well prepared. He has so many things that we can talk about, and I just don't know where to start. Yeah, and I try to cover the quintessence of his philosophy, but I don't know. I really do I do it sufficiently. I'm sure his life really has inspired so many people. Although when he passed away, because remember how he had to leave his country and try to propagate his idea. And actually, in some countries, he met with so much opposition and sometimes even jealousy or hatred. So it was not a very happy and very smooth life. So when he passed away, he probably didn't know that he probably believed himself to be a failure, right? In selling his ideology, but his ideology really inspired so many generations for 2,500 years, and we know that it's people who really believe in what he believed in, hardworking, being benevolent, believe in the value of education, they can really thrive. Okay, so I hope we get some kind of inspiration from his life experience. I guess.
How old was he when he passed away?
Okay, I think he was 72, right? He was 72. He lived to be 72 years old. No. Yeah, 72 years old. Yeah, and I think he returned to his country when he was 68. Mm. Yeah, so close to his death. Any comments? I'm sorry, I should have been better prepared.
Yeah. That has to do with his system that he established, the meritocracy. Mm-hmm. Because today there's a misunderstanding of that meritocracy, because meritocracy is based on what? Merit, right? And so people today say, oh man, the rich people, they get good education systems, so therefore they can do better on the tests and all that stuff. In other words, it's not based on like affirmative action, for example, like in the U.S., right? But there's a misunderstanding of that because what his meritocracy requires what no one left behind. So that's why this meritocracy requires that everyone gets equal chance to the education, right? So if you don't have everyone with equal chance to have an education, then yes, meritocracy may not work because only the wealthy people, whatever, so it becomes biased. And so there's a misunderstanding sometimes of, because people sometimes today criticizing, meritocracy doesn't work. Yeah, because you're not equal. You're not equal at the very bottom. So that is why. But if you really follow the method he established, based on the requirement that everyone is equal, that they get the same chance at the education from the very start, then yeah, meritocracy works. So unfortunately, like every system, it's there are good systems. There are many different types of good systems, but it only is good if you can follow it from the beginning to the end. If you started going deviating or whatever, then yeah, everything sometimes doesn't work out. So, but anyway, that's the meritocracy aspect. Yeah, and during his life, many people say he had an emphasis on rituals.
Yeah.
He emphasized rituals, the need to have rituals. Yeah. The reason for that, people think, you're just doing ancestral worship, blah, 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 takes up too much time. Have you seen a Confucian ritual? Oh man, it takes a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Longer than here?
Well, yeah, because remember when, just some years back when our grandparents was alive, I don't know, maybe he was still alive, yeah. Taiwan wanted to, China, not Taiwan, wanted to sort of reintroduce Confucian something, and they didn't know how to do it really. So they actually asked the Tao community, because we have Confucian whatever, to host, not host, but to perform the ceremony and that stuff. And man, it's like that video is like so. I looked at it, oh man, it is long. It's very symbolic, but what is the reason why? His reason for rituals is two aspects. One, because he emphasized the rituals of the Zhou dynasty, the prior dynasty, before Spring and On period time. Because he wanted everybody to think back, the good times, sort of good times, so to speak, and follow the virtues of whatever, blah, 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 the Zhou kings and all that stuff. But his other aspect is really, the second point, is probably even more important one, is to understand that the rituals are a form of discipline. That's why we have food religious, we emphasize food religious so much.
Yeah.
Same thing, same idea. Is to encourage or to practice discipline. And if you can have discipline, it can help you also in his education and stuff, because you can be focused on your education and stuff. But mainly it's for discipline.
Helps us in the cultivation.
Yeah. Because discipline will help you cultivate, especially when we do vows. Because discipline allows you to stick with it really and be sincere. So in a way, true sincerity, discipline is a part of true sincerity. So there's many aspects, many characteristics that go back to true sincerity. Yeah. So yeah, discipline is definitely one of them. Discipline. So anyway, that's as far as
I think in the analect he also mentioned that we might be a very self-disciplined person. We already know all the principles and all these regulations, but how would people know that you are such a person? It's through all this propriety, these rituals, that it's the outward manifestation of what's inside.
Yeah, because also another thing about his time was that, or some people criticize about his time, is the fact that he, in a way, also introduced, or not introduced, but emphasized also the aspect of like status and caste status. The idea of these are people at this level, these are people at this level, and he used ceremony and all that stuff as a way of displaying that. also the aspect of what you wear, what kind of hat you wear, etc. So it's part of the ceremony. That's true. But and in a way, also subtle point. I mean, on a minor aspect of it is that it seems like he is introducing sort of like different caste systems. Okay. Now people say, oh, that's no good. You're trying to make
Create
people divide this
class.
social class. But his reason, I think anyway, the rationale, the reason for that was he's trying to introduce to us the fact that there are different levels of people with different talents. Okay. Remember, he had also said what? It doesn't matter where you come poor or whatever. It's all through meritocracy, right? So it doesn't matter whether you come from a peasant or a rich family. So you could be somebody high in whatever status. But he did introduce, I think, for two reasons. One is the reason of the fact that we need to let the people know who can, who are the people who have the most merit, if you will, so therefore can lead the country into whatever. Because after all, his ideal is utopia, right? The idea of harmony, etc. Right? So because he has introduced all these ethics and all that. So the idea is that these people who are taught properly will be very virtuous, okay, not selfish. But unfortunately, the system always gets corrupted. There are selfish people on the top, etc. So the idea is the fact that by showing these people, it allows people to, like I said, one is allows people to understand that regardless of where you are, you can climb to the top. That's merit. Okay. And number two is that you need to respect or follow these people at the top because they are very virtuous. Okay. Of course, that's the ideal. It doesn't necessarily turn out that way because people at top people can be very selfish and greedy and all that stuff. So, but again, he wanted to introduce the fact that it's sort of like Plato's what they call the philosopher kings, that the people who are going to be leaders should be virtuous people and also great learned people, so they can
run the country.
Yeah, run the country, right? Because that's what that's what Confucius is talking about. 治国, to govern the country, etc. So that's why I introduced that. But again, it's hard, sometimes all that gets put aside when all they see is just the ceremonies and all that. Because the ceremonies do emphasize, different class of there's the ranks, different classes, there's different ranking. Because ceremony does that. Who gets to come first? Who gets to come second? Because that's rank. You're higher rank than lower rank and all that stuff.
And one thing noteworthy is it's not just these people on the higher social status has that privilege. They also have to share more and much probably harder responsibilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Was anything?